Happy Tuesday! I'm popping on with the exciting announcement that I am going to be doing this series all about mini interview series with some of my clients who I actually have 3 clients lined up who are in pretty different areas in their careers and their lives as a result of some of the work we've done. So Anne is joining us now, and I'm just gonna have her pop in here. One up, which I'm very excited to have all of you meet. You are going to love her. You've seen her in this group a little bit. So just waiting for a sec as she pops on. But we're doing this interview series to really show you some great examples of what this kind of work can do for you. So again, I have people in a couple different areas. Anne is first step, who actually stayed at her same company and yet transitioned her role a little bit, adjusted it, made some small tweaks to stay in the same role and yet do more of the stuff she loved. So I'm super excited to have all of you meet her. If you love her half as much as I do, you're going to be obsessed. So she's amazing. So we'll just wait for her to pop on. It says she's joining us. And I think that should be adding her now. So it says adding, but you never know with technical difficulties. We'll give her a sec. Oh. But in the meantime, as we do this, I'll give you a little bit of an introduction. So I am Chris. Oh, there we go. Approve. There we go. Give me a sec, guys. It keeps saying there's someone already on here because it sees the request. There we go.
Hi, it works. I think.
Yay! Hallelujah! I know tech difficulties is always fun. But I'm glad that to have you on here. I was saying that as people watch this back, give us a hi when you hop on. But I was saying, I'm like, if you love Anne even like a quarter as much as I do, you're gonna be obsessed. She's the best.
You are adorable.
But I'm super happy you're here.
Thanks for having me. So fun.
Yeah, thanks for joining us. I was just doing a little bit of overview of why we're doing this series, how we have a couple different people in different areas. And so just a little brief reintroduction before I introduce you to Anne properly and ask her a couple different questions to explain kind of her story to you. I'm Chris. Most of you probably know me by now. You've seen my face a lot in here. But really, if you're new to my world, what I do is I'm a career coach in Denver, and I'm focused on helping millennial women build careers that they love. Really what that means is something that is really rewarding and you get paid well, and yet you also give a shit about. And so that's always the factor that we look for here, is the doing something you really care about and you feel inspired by and motivated by every single day. And I think few people are as wonderful of an example of the dedication, the wanting to understand yourself, and the true evolutionary being that is Anne. So I'm super happy she's here with us. Anne is one of my clients who I've worked with, who was really, I'll let her tell you more about how we started working together, but basics is we were both at an event in Denver and we met there, and after that we just got to talking and it was a match made in heaven. So that is Anne. I'm super happy to have her here, and I will hand it over. So first and foremost, Anne, thank you so much for being here. You are so wonderful. I'm so happy to have you.
So honored. Thanks, Chris.
Yeah, and first question, I kind of wanted to just take through a couple questions. First being, tell me a little bit more about, don't tell me, tell them a little bit more about your experience before we started working together. So if you could share just a little more about where you were at, some of the stuff you had done up to that point, what you were hoping to get from this work, and what gap Empowered Achievers filled that you necessarily hadn't had.
Totally. So I, like you, actually came from agency world. So spent the first 5 years of my career doing the hustle. Agency life's hard. It's really gratifying. It's an amazing place to start a career. But worked at one of the really huge agencies in DC and Seattle and Sydney, and had one of those life moments that just kicked me in the butt, and I needed to take a break. So I did. I traveled for 9 months. It was amazing. And then I got recruited for the job that I currently work at. It's a smaller company. It's in-house. And it was just the total opposite from how I was kind of born and bred in the marketing world. So when I met you, Chris, I thought, I have a career that I love. I love marketing. I have an incredible team. I don't really think I really need you, but I just fell in love with your outlook on life. And I was like, I don't really care what we're going to work on, but I am going to work with you. And so The more we dug in, though, I think the first assignment you had me do was listing out my day, like, which lists are my very favorite thing. So this was an easy assignment. It's like literally every moment of my day and what do I like or don't like about that day, that task rather. And
Mm-hmm.
so that first assignment had me realizing, actually, maybe I kind of do have this slight concern that I was probably talking myself out of. And it was one, a little bit of the imposter syndrome thing. And two, do I need to work at a company where I seriously, deeply am passionate about our product, like what I'm selling? I'm such a values person, which presented itself as we did our personal, me at my best
Yeah.
work. But I just questioned, like, am I being, blinded by all of the amazing things that I really love about where I work? And I just wanted to make sure that I wasn't being blinded or making decisions that didn't really serve like who I am as a
Yeah.
person.
Yeah. Yeah. And I've got to say, I mean, I think that's such a nice testament to the fact that I think a lot of people have this mistake where they think that in order to do work on your career, you have to hate it. And I actually don't think that's the case. I think so often it's better when you're in the exact situation you were of, I like it, but could I like it more? Because you can go so far with that. If you just push yourself a little bit and be like, okay, there's always room to do a little bit more of the stuff you like and a little less of the stuff you don't. And yet so often I think people forget that. So I think you're such a wonderful example of that, of actually that common situation people feel where they're in, where they're like, well, I don't hate this, so that means it's fine, right? And then once you scratch the surface a little, you're like, well, maybe there's a couple things I could adjust a little bit. So yeah, I totally.
100%. And like working through that list then obviously led itself into what are my values? And that seems like such a duh question that everyone has values. But actually going through the work of writing this stuff down and really reflecting on it, like the other thing that I've really enjoyed about our work is it's so not just professional for me, it's very personal as well. So I literally have like so many now new habits that I'm working on that are absolutely inspired by that homework, from that first homework. So
yeah, totally. And that's a good point too. I think in the vein of misconceptions about career coaching, the reason I use the term career coaching is because we talk so much about your career, and yet it is obviously like holistic career coaching because it's going to affect your life. If you avoid confrontation in the office and we work on addressing that, I can guarantee it'll probably help when you like have to have that conversation with your roommate or whatever it is. And so I think people forget that this is more about your life as a whole. Your work is just a really big part of your life. And so when we look at it and when we tweak it every single time, and I've shared those kind of like before and after reels in there before, and you can see the difference of it's never just your career that changes. It's all of the areas because you change as a person and you take so much more ownership. So that's a really good point too.
totally. And like one of my favorite things now is I'm doing monthly solo dates. So I literally intentionally take myself on a date and just do a check-in. So it's like, what are each of my values? How am I feeling about where I'm at right then? What is my action plan that I'm going to focus on in the next month? It's just a nice check-in and make sure nothing's totally out of whack.
Totally. And that's a really good example of pairing too, which I think we talked about, which is that idea of putting something that is a new habit you're trying to implement. And this, sometimes people do this often with exercise or something that they don't want to do. And sometimes thinking about yourself can feel like it goes in that bucket, even though you want to do it afterwards. It's like the gym where you're like, getting up my energy to go can be kind of hard. And so pairing it with something that you actually really look forward to of like, I'm going to go to this new restaurant, or I'm going to sit and get my pedicure while I like bring my journal, anything like that, I think is a super lovely illustration. And I think we could all use more of that. Now I'm trying to think of, I'm like, ooh, what more fun stuff could I start doing? Because I love the idea of solo dates. So that's awesome.
It's so fun. It's so fun.
Yeah. Yeah. And then on top of that, kind of, that's a little bit about kind of where you were before and some of the stuff we started to do, but tell us a little bit more, or tell them a little bit more about really some of the changes you were able to make in terms of better aligning your role. So how were you able to make those tweaks to get a little bit more fulfillment? Because obviously I know a bit about how that story happened, but I think it would be really helpful for anyone who watches this back to get a better idea of how you can actually make those big changes.
Totally. So I think, well, first of all, I realized that my job was fulfilling me. Like I suspected as such, but there were these tweaks that I could make that like made the buckets overflow. So some of the practical things that I then went out and changed was, first of all, I hired 2 new people for my team, and that really helped with bandwidth so that I could, like, it sounds selfish, right? But like I could tackle the type of work that I really want to work on and that I'm good at, and then I want to grow in and learn in. And this is bringing like so much more satisfaction. So hiring people to spread out the workload, and then I'm so type A, like I'm your classic client where I think that I want to do all things to all people. Everything's a priority and it all has to be done perfectly. But for our strategic marketing plan for the year, I actually kind of turned our calendar on its head. And so the front half of the year are focused on projects that always fall to the back burner because we have to keep all these other like, things in motion. And then the things that I really want to work on, like account-based marketing, fall to the wayside because we run out of time. So I talked to my CEO. We had like a really practical conversation about, this is how I believe this is going to support the business. Do you support us prioritizing this? And she was like, hell yeah. So sometimes it's just literally just making it happen.
Yeah.
Giving yourself
well, having
permission.
that conversation. My mom used to always say, which I like love, I think is the funniest quote, she would always say, like, just open your beautiful mouth and ask. But it's true because it kind of makes sense. Like, sometimes you just have to ask. And I also want to share in that vein, I think that is a common misplaced people have, is so often people are like, well, I can't possibly have that conversation. Like, or oh, it's great that she was able to hire people, but I couldn't possibly do that. But you have to make a lot of steps before you can rule out that that's never going to happen. And if you do have that conversation and your leadership team is not as wonderfully supportive as Anne's was, then you can also make your decision with all the cards on the table of like, okay, well then, does that mean, do I want to stay here and find another way to make it work? Or do I want to go somewhere else? But then at least you know everything's out on the table. And so I think that's a really nice reminder to people of, so often I see people miss that crucial step. And I think that's why, to me, you're such a perfect example of success, is you wanted to have that conversation, and even though you maybe were a little bit nervous for it, you took the leap, and the result, the impact as a result of it was huge.
Totally. And I think part of our type A is overanalyzing everything. We just become like, that can be such and being analytical and self-critical and self-aware is a beautiful thing, but it can totally turn into a nemesis if you don't channel it properly. So I fall into this habit of like overthinking, what if, what do you call that? I think anticipatory worry. Like, for sure I have that. I definitely have that. But yeah, like, what's the worst that could happen? It actually rarely happens. The worst.
Yeah. Well, and as Anne mentioned, right? So anticipatory worry, just for anyone who hasn't seen one of my Training Tuesdays about that, is this idea of thinking 10 steps ahead, creating the worry of, there's 2 fears. Fear is projected thought, and then through like evolutionary fear, that tells you not to like go over and hang out with your neighbor if your neighbor's Robert Durst or something like that, right? And so then there's also this other fear is projected thought, 10 steps ahead in the future. And as we talked about, one of the big things is saying, what's the worst case scenario? Because all you can do is deal with what you're dealing with now. And you could plan for all of the 10 steps ahead, and it's always going to be the thing that you don't plan that's going to get you. So the example I use often for that is on John and my honeymoon, we planned for everything, and then there was a volcano on Bali, and we did not plan for that. So it's like the one thing that you don't plan for that's going to for sure take you out. But in that vein, I think, and I mean, thank you so much for sharing that, because I think you're such a perfect example of someone who is human enough to be able to say, like, I realized that I was doing this, and I actually took the time that, even though things were going well, I took the time to say, what are the small tweaks I can be making? I get that maybe I'm the kind of person who is really scared of having that conversation, and I'm going to do it anyways. And the fact that you can even know that about yourself and say, I get that our type of people tend to do that, it says a lot about who you are. So thank you.
So kind.
Yeah. Last kind of big question that I have for you is the idea of the big changes you make, I guess, some of the shifts that you made. How do you feel now looking back at it, or in retrospect? Like, tell me how you're feeling now that you're looking back at the process.
Well, like I said, because this is not just while my butt's in a seat in an office kind of work for me, it's like totally transcends my life. I think I'm constantly coming back to it. I mean, it's everything from like little morning habitual routines. Like you introduced me to the 5 minute journal. That's something like I can't
Mhm.
even fathom my life without now. And it's just like setting yourself up for success so that you're like your default. My default now is I have a methodology. I don't need to freak out about all the unknowns because if ever I do run into the predicament, there's like this nice little framework. Like I like homework. I'm a student, and so you don't have to worry about the unknown anymore. Um,
Mhm.
and then the other thing, Chris, that I think you probably don't even know how big of an impact you've had on me is that just the permission to change your mind. Like
Yeah.
I just that sometimes for me felt like gray area, and I struggle with gray area, but knowing that you can emphatically decide and think things out and be really intentional about saying yes and then doing a complete 180 and choosing the opposite a month later, 6 months later, like that's okay. That's
Yeah.
life. It's
Yeah.
not a failure. It's growth.
Totally. I love that so much. It's true because you can always decide again, right? And that was a big thing. I know personally there was stuff going on for you that was kind of the question of like, ooh, should I or shouldn't I?
Yeah.
And that idea of like you can decide something and that can be totally the right choice for now. And it doesn't mean that you can never decide again, but you do have to walk through a door because that's the problem people make is being like, well, there's so many doors open. I guess I'm just going to sit in the middle. I'm like, no, you walk through one door that's the right choice for now. And then that other door might be down the road later if that still works out for you.
100%. Like, and we can just all be friends here. Like, that's absolutely what's happening right now. Like, I emphatically chose Denver, chose to live in Denver. That was my thing, but I have had on my heart for a long time to go back to Seattle. And I've now just changed my mind. And so now it becomes, okay, how do I bring it back all of this homework that you taught me? Um, and like trust, I have like a bunch of printouts and a whole Google Drive dedicated to Empower Achievement work where I can go back and like really use this toolbox that you gave me to reevaluate, okay, how am I going to make this happen? When, what works for me, and not
Yeah.
listening to all the outside noise, and figuring out how to present that. And then, if it doesn't go the way that I want it to, what does the next chapter look like and how do I get there?
Yeah.
So
Yeah. Totally. And it makes me so happy. That was a personal thing I mentioned. I didn't want to totally out you, but I think that it's so wonderful for me to see that you can come back to those tools and be like, okay, right. And that's what was the goal of, I've talked about it on here before, but that's the goal of replacing your end goal with more of a, here's who I am at my best and here's who I want to focus on being each day and in all of my decisions. It makes it so that you feel like you have control because people who are like us tend to really love control. And I know I have always been that person of like, rules are there because they can are fun. But
totally.
it gives you that feeling of structure while knowing that the path can alter on that same, and you still get to the same end goal. And so it gives you the sense of control while giving you flexibility. And I think that's the space we want to hit because too much control, one thing changes and it feels like the earth is crumbling. No control, and you just like don't even know where to go. So I always think it's kind of the happy thing.
I love like this personal statement for me is like if I'm ever like in a predicament, something as stupid as like, should I skip the gym today? It's like looking at this personal me at my best. It's my filter. Like it's a nice default where it's just easy, quick. Hell yes, hell no.
Oh yeah, hell yes, hell no. No hell maybes.
Yeah.
Yeah. And so, is there anything else about the work that we did that you want to share or mention or anything like that?
I think that's why. Like the last thing I would just say is like, it's expensive to invest in yourself. Like for sure, financially, time-wise, energy. Like it's a commitment for sure. But I think I don't sign up for just solutions or band-aids to a fix. I think that's why I've loved working with you is you have given me like longevity and frameworks and methodologies versus just, well, go do this for that one problem. Like that's not worth investing in for me. That's like, I'm going to have another problem tomorrow. So that's probably one of my favorite things too is like, it's such long-serving, evergreen stuff. Lifelong, hopefully.
Yeah. Well, and I think that's the thing to be said too, like for investing in yourself. Yeah. I mean, it is, and yet it isn't, because if you don't like, I'm amazed at what I see people spend money in and be like, well, I just can't, I can't. And the reality is if you can't, there's typically three reasons. It's either you don't understand like programming or how it fits in, or it doesn't fit in. It doesn't make sense with what you actually, so it either is a mismatch in needs, it's a mismatch in trust. So either you don't trust me or whoever you're talking about investing in those things, or you don't trust yourself. And that's normally the biggest one. And that's a majority of what I see is people being like, well, I'm scared that I'm going to actually make this commitment and make this investment, and then I'm not going to do anything about it. And I'm like, well, I get that maybe that's what's happened in the past, and that's why you have to have accountability. Because if you don't put skin in the game, then you're going to be like in this constant, maybe next year's the time I'm going to do these things. So totally understand. I totally appreciate it. And I think it's something of like, you get to choose where your priorities are. And to me, my priority is me. And to you, I know your priority is you. But I think that's always going to be the question for people. You have to
100%.
do what decision is right for you at that point.
Totally. Well, hopefully it's you. It's a good place to be.
Yeah. Well, thank you so much for being here. I mean, I so love and appreciate you. You've been such an amazing client, and you've been such an amazing advocate for me, the brand. I know you've brought some other clients who I really, really love into the fold. And I'm just so excited that you're actually able to be here and share your story with everyone, because I know they're going to find it so incredibly inspiring.
You're so lovely. Thank you so much, Chris.
Yeah. Of course. And so for everyone who's watching, as you watch this back, you'll see Anne around in the group, but then you can also, I'll drop below, or I'll drop in the comments how you can find her on LinkedIn if you want to connect with her. So the company she works at now, Switch, which she loves, any hiring that they're doing, she'll post stuff on there, so you can always connect with her on there, or you can see her in the group, obviously. And then for those of you who are ready to kind of do these kind of things, as you know, I'll be having more of these interview series this next couple of weeks as we lead up to Career Clarity Camp, the last one of 2018. And really what that's all about is the program that takes all my one-on-one stuff and consolidates it into a group program over the span of 3 months, so that you can go learn all the modules that we learn, do that piece self-study, have group calls, have one-on-one calls. So it's kind of like the behemoth of the programming that's really stepping in lieu of all of my one-on-one, because I only have so many hours in the day. And I've realized that in the last 6 months of scaling questions. So I invite anyone who's interested in learning more about that. You can just chat or comment CCC below or message me. And if you have any questions about that, I'm so in your corner. You have wonderful people in this group like Anne here to help show you what it looks like to be an amazing badass who actually just does the stuff you want to do. So thank you, Anne. Thank all of you for watching it back, and I appreciate you so much.
Yeah, thanks, guys.
Of course. Thanks. See you everyone in the group. Bye, Anne.